Hello, sweetie. Patreon sponsored review for this one. This has been waiting for a long time. This is why I don't really take book review commissions that aren't available on audio anymore. But Legends of River Song. This is a collection of 5 stories featuring everyone's favorite partial Time Lord. I guess she counts as that. But yeah, this has been waiting for me to get to for a while. But I finally managed to read most of it on the plane to and from Gallifrey 1, fittingly enough, and I finally read the last story. So now I can talk about it. This is broken up with 5, I guess, what would be considered to be like diary entries of her recounting adventures that she's had, some of which the Doctor actually shows up in, some of which he doesn't. I'll be upfront and say I kind of like the ones where the Doctor is not an active participant a little bit better. I think partially because, like, there were always hints that obviously she has a lot that she does other than have adventures with the Doctor, because, you know, there's all this stuff that she knows how to do. You know, people who are mad at her for one reason or another, the Doctor has no idea who they are. Yes, granted, part of that is they meet each other out of order, but also part of it is she does stuff on her own. But ultimately, even though that stuff is hinted at, all we ever see her do on the show is be with the Doctor. So it was kind of nice to get a sense of what an adventure for her that doesn't have the Doctor show up looks like. That having been said, the presence of Doctor Who is very palpable throughout the whole thing. I mean, you could chalk it up to it being set in the universe of Doctor Who, but even in stories where the Doctor does not personally appear, you still kind of feel the presence of the Doctor in most of them. So I don't know. It didn't get quite as far away as I would have liked, but I did still have fun with this. There's 5 stories. I'm going to kind of go through them. Spoiler free. First one is Picnic at Asgard, which is the Doctor and River going for an outing at basically a theme park based on Asgard. You know, the notion of where the Norse gods hang out. And it's fun. It's kind of got that rollicking adventure feel. The Doctor's very prominent in this one, and I think it's probably the one that I like the least. That's not to say it's bad. It's fine, and it's probably well placed as the first one in the book, because it kind of sets the tone and gives you a sense of things while giving you that connection to, you know, a character that presumably everybody knows. Oh, it's worth noting that because of when this was released and where Doctor Who was at the time, the only Doctor who shows up and gets explicit mention is the 11th. So it's her and Bowtie Boy when he shows up. It would have been kind of neat if things had been, if either she'd encountered other Doctors. I know that gets complicated because of just the nature of when she meets other Doctors, or honestly just kind of being a little bit more vague about which Doctor she's with or referring to at any given time. I think it would have been fun if it had a little bit more of a loose relationship with that. It doesn't, but just a thought. So that first one is just, you know, big interstellar amusement park goes wrong. They have to save people. The second one, I really want to remove the Doctor from. Not that he's bad as a presence, but I was really loving the main focus when he wasn't there, because in Suspicious Minds, we establish the character of Elvis. Now, it's not literally Elvis Presley, but what it is an Auton who has been left behind from one of the numerous failed attempts by the Nestene consciousness to take over the planet. And this particular one, and it's established that this is atypical. There aren't like a bunch of Autons running around doing this, but it is established that in his particular case, he didn't shut down. And what he did was he pretended to be the Elvis Presley wax figure at Madame Tussauds. And so River recognized that he was an Auton immediately, but also figured out that like he's harmless and he likes embodying that sense, and like he doesn't pass for human, but she'd like meet up with him every couple years or decade or so, and like they'd go out at night, and stuff, and there's a really sweet relationship between the two of them, and I like the idea in general. Like it kind of reminded me a little bit of handles that Cyberman had that the Doctor has only in the Time of the Doctor, which is a concept I love. I would have loved multiple adventures of him just hanging out with this Cyberman head that he gets attached to. I like ideas like that, and Elvis gives me a little bit of that feeling as well. Now, the Doctor does eventually show up in that story when it actually moves into the threat and the plot, because obviously there has to be one. But I just really loved Elvis and the dynamic between him and River. And I kind of wish that just going through the sorts of outings they had together was just the whole thing. I mean, arguably it is, but a Doctor Who adventure kind of overtakes the story towards the back half. And I don't know, I just kind of liked the two of them hanging out. They were adorable. Next one up, A Gamble with Time. This is probably my favorite one. The Doctor is technically in this, but he's incredibly peripheral. Basically, River is at the very edge of an adventure the Doctor is having dealing with something else. And she encounters this guy who has basically kind of looped back on his own timeline, but he doesn't really know he doesn't know what he's doing. It's kind of a reinforcement of something that I've said elsewhere, where the question comes up of like, well, wait a minute, the rules are inconsistent. One story, the Doctor can do this. The other stories, he can't. Like, he can change time here, but not here. What's going on? And basically it boils down to he knows what he's doing. And to some extent, River does as well. This poor guy doesn't. And as a result, he's causing some potentially really big problems that happen simply because he doesn't know what to do or not do. And there's a wonderful haplessness to him, and the ultimate resolution on that particular story, it's a little, well, I was gonna say it's a little melancholy. It's sort of not, though. Like, the resolution and how that story wraps up could have been very melancholy and honestly a little bit of a bummer, but it is presented in a way that actually makes it feel better than probably it should. But I did find myself smiling when I read the last paragraph and how the situation that wraps that thing up is presented to the reader. I'm like, oh, well, that's all right then. Next one after that is Death in Venice, which probably competes with Picnic at Asgard as the one that I think is the least good. I don't want to say worst, because that implies any of these are bad, and none of them are. I think I rate this one a little bit higher than Picnic at Asgard because it is strictly just a river adventure. Her doing her own stuff. Oh, it is a recurring thing in these that she basically starts out in the storm cage, or has to return there a lot of the time. It basically painting a picture that she is breaking out on a regular basis. Sometimes they know she has, sometimes they don't. But she always goes back voluntarily, generally. And so this one has her involved in the creation of what to the very rich people financing it sounded like a great idea, but she knew from the start was a terrible idea, to the point that actually as soon as they open this, it's this whole notion of oh, it's this architectural space where it can read the minds and desires of the people who live there, and then it's it'll be their perfect environment, except River understands that people have a lot of unconscious thoughts and a lot of things that, that they don't realize they're thinking that this thing's going to pick up on, and it's going to be a disaster. And she does stick around to ultimately try and help the situation, but there is a great moment where basically as soon as the doors officially open, she's like, cool, my contract's up, bye. This is going to be bad. And it is. I think the reason I marked this one a little bit lower is just because it's a lot of action. The concepts behind it are really good, but it is the kind of thing that I think would have been a lot cooler to present in a visual medium. Some stories work perfectly fine in the written form. There are some others that I'm like, as you're describing basically action-y scenes to me, I'm like, that's the kind of thing that's better when you see it. That's not to say that you can't write visual action well, but when it makes up the bulk of the story, I'm like, I'm missing the stuff that this feels like it could have done better, like character interactions and dialogue and stuff like that. But it's still pretty fun. And then the last one is River of Time, which it's good, but I don't think this is the right format for it. Like, I legitimately want to take what Rivers of Time is doing and have it be a 2-part episode of Doctor Who. Like, have it be a Dr. Light episode, honestly, because him not showing up or being a major part of that one is part of why it works. But like, the ideas are also really big and kind of too big for not only the page, but like a short story. So basically, there's an archaeological site where the TARDIS is found, and on the front is just a note that says, "If found, please notify River Song Stormcage Prison." And so she gets brought to this architectural site to try and figure out what's going on. And I don't want to spoil any of it, but what we get are actually some really cool ideas, some really big and grand ideas that I think it's a huge idea crammed into a small space. Not that it's done badly, but there is a character who shows up who is basically just a massive exposition dump because that was the only way to cram all these ideas into this space. Does it work? Yes, well enough. Do I wish it had a bigger canvas to stretch out on? Boy, yeah, I really do. I really would have loved to see this expanded out as like a 2-part episode, either as a 2-part episode of the show or just a full novel. It easily could have been. It's still good, but you can feel the constraints of it being crammed into a smaller space. I think a big part of the reason why A Gamble with Time is my favorite is that it feels like the one best tailored to the format it's in. It is also short, but it is telling a story small enough and contained enough that it really fills its limited space incredibly well. It doesn't feel overstuffed, nor does it feel stretched. So it's that one, I think that's a big part of why that one's kind of my ideal. They're all written by different authors, so it's actually kind of impressive that the narrative voice of River is incredibly consistent. That might be something to credit the editors for, like for the people overseeing it and making sure that everything was consistent with the character. Oddly enough, the narration at times reminded me a little bit of Kitty Cat Kill Sat, if you saw my review for that, in that while River doesn't have ADHD to the degree that Lily does in that book, it does kind of have a similar feel of, I wrote this bit down when I had the time, and then there's a jump, and coming back in and go, okay, I got to fill you in on some stuff so I can tell you what happened next. And yeah, reminding me of Kitty Cat Kill Sat is always going to be a good thing. So yeah, I liked it. This was fun. I'm sorry it took me so long to get to it. Again, I am no longer taking reviews for written works that I cannot get in audiobook form. And how long this has been waiting to get done is the exact reason why. So thank you for the Patreon supporter who commissioned it. If you want to consider commissioning me for stuff, the Patreon is how you can do that. You can also support me at any tier, and it helps me out massively. And also you get different perks depending on what tier of support you are at. I appreciate all the help and assistance that I get. It means the world to me. But Legends of River Song, has anyone else read this? Whatever your thoughts are about it, drop something down in the comments and let's talk about it. Like, share, subscribe also help if you feel like doing that, but don't worry too much about it. We take a relaxed attitude around here, so you can just come on back next time you need a break. And now to thank my highest supporting patrons: Robin Moore, Jared Boyce, Zubin Lafula, Auntie Kate 808, Mira G, Angry Casperl, Dave Hall, Oliver B, Mystic Shadow, Sean Miller, Welsh Wrestling Geeks, Melissa Pedersen, Pickapawk, Becky Sparks, Ulrich, Twylord, Tracy Scrabbit, Palbro Rabajoggle, Cindy Ella, Sir Didymus is my favorite, and thanking some random folks from my lower tiers of support. Thank you, Pippa Barwell, Mandy Walla, and Jessica, the Trans Metal Alchemist. The boys are back, and we've got a new one here. We have Navarro has joined the mischief. Okay, so that's just what we're doing now. All right.